Hi there, I'm Mahibi, I'm the Sea Coach, and welcome back to part 3, where we're looking at point 3, the reintegration plan for repatriation. And in the last video, we looked at career management and planning. Let's look at what's in store for us today. So we are at that halfway point in part 3, and we'll be looking at the 100-day reintegration plan. Let's have a look at those points together. So the organisation needs to proactively plan and manage both the reintegration of the individual's personal and work-life pressures. We're safeguarding the individual's loyalty. We're ensuring that the employee feels truly valued and recognised as a key talent that's contributing to the ongoing success of the organisation. Now, this may result in reviewing and developing your current global mobility policies. We may need to look at supporting more effective planning and looking at things like repatriation packages or bonuses to account for the loss of the expat package. We could be compensating for different needs via schooling allowances to make up for the loss of private schooling benefits, as an example. So exploring expectations of the noticeable changes so the individual really feels a difference. And this is personal to them. This is not just also a new job role label. That's not what this is about. So let's look through some of these examples. I was talking with some friends about this who have been away on assignment themselves for shorter periods, about 2 years. But when they returned home, they came back to the same pile of papers that they had left behind on their desk, or they'd returned back to the same physical desk in the same physical location on the same floor. Nothing had changed. Nothing really felt as if it had shifted, it had progressed. It didn't feel as though things were moving forward with their career path. And even just that physical change, or actually no physical change in their desk, made a real difference to their mindset. There's also something here around understanding what the person wants to potentially come home to. So we're not just looking at physical elements, but also that psychological support that we've touched on previously. We really want to support the individual's confidence and their self-esteem to communicate needs. We're coming back to effective communications. It is everything at the heart of a very complex process. So we're looking at effective communications in scope of family and work impacts. And it is really important to understand all aspects of these needs that are both personal and related to work. If we look at personal impacts, let's look through some examples. What if the employee feels that it's really important to look at changing schools for their children in line with the school year? This could feel kinder, not only for the children, but also as parents. What if the family has become accustomed to personalised support at home? They're going to be losing that support. This could feel quite overwhelming, especially for the partner who may have been taking on this role prior to moving. Or how are they going to manage this in terms of the extra family pressures to reintegrate back into family life? There's also a consideration here around expenses that have been previously paid and covered by expat expenses. Who's going to make up for this financial gap now that the expat status has been lost? And there's an important point here around why the coach can play such a great role here. Talking around financial gaps, financial needs, can feel difficult and a bit uncomfortable in this consideration or exploration point at this phase, looking at what that gap would feel like and what the actual impacts would be. So exploring those gaps and those impacts with a coach firsthand, identifying what it is that the employee really needs along with their family is going to be super important to then support those effective communications. So Defining the real needs of the individual and the wider family in consideration of those external pressures outside of work, and defining a fairly perceived compensation. This word fair is quite important because that is the emotional connection that the employee and their family are going to feel. They want it to feel fair. So when we're thinking about this compensation package, what does fair mean for the employee and their family? What's their personal circumstance? So we've talked about this in the previous point, aligning schooling schedules, starting with the new school year or term, understanding the financial pressures potentially to pay for schooling, what's the additional family pressures, being received and welcomed home by wider family can feel a bit overwhelming as well. Personnel loss in terms of support at home, expenses, etc. Would a repatriation loyalty package be well received for your employee? And if you do have one in place at the moment, how flexible is that for the employee? Exploring pressures in the workplace and understanding the options to support a smoother and faster reintegration is going to be key. We're looking at a situation where the employee is experiencing a loss of work colleagues, friends, team in expat destination, coupled with a lot of change that's happening once they land in the home office, their family life. Essentially, as well, we're thinking about this loss of autonomy and potentially status. When we think about expat, we think about expat status, and they're experiencing a loss of this, a loss of culture, a loss of a lifestyle, a loss of ways of working. So these risks can be mitigated by planning, and examples of these include networking back with colleagues in home country often or as often as possible, having ongoing mentors, buddies, and also facilitating training in a really safe way so that it doesn't feel as though the employee is moving backwards. Just because they're receiving training doesn't mean that they are underskilled or don't have the right competencies, but potentially retraining in processes, ways of working, so that they feel that they can integrate more smoothly in that transition. Identify new challenges and solutions to navigate through this transition. So, examples: building a new relationship, a working style with a new line manager, or potentially if they've stepped into a promotion as a line manager, what is their working style? Developing management and leadership skills to support that. What are the attributes of being a leader? How are we going to support these behaviors? How are we going to support the types of communications that underpin management leadership roles? And this is all going to reflect the new challenge and adventure that this person is taking on. So let's do this and grab our pen and paper and look at some reflective questions. How do you partner with the employee to understand their needs related to both work and family life on repatriation? We're looking at those pieces that will form part of a potential repatriation package that's personal to the employee and their family. How are you proactively addressing any worries or concerns? How do you take that temperature check? Where are your employees in terms of their feelings? Do you have a standard checklist offering flexibility to meet specific needs? So do you have something that's standardized in terms of your repatriation checklist? And then you can modify parts of that package to really meet the bespoke needs of the employee and their family. How do you identify any red flags at work that could act as a barrier to smooth and easy integration, and who is responsible for this? So this is a key coaching question. What are the barriers? What do you think could hold you back? And in order to understand that, we need to ask the question directly, but we also need to then have an action plan in place, and that's really going to support confidence and feelings of control as well. And our two favorite questions: what's missing in existing policies that you can then create some nice quick wins? And then what are the key action points or projects, initiatives that we need to create to coordinate with the rest of the business and integrate this into our existing policies. I'm Mahibi. Thank you so much for joining me in point 3. And in the next video, we'll be looking at point 4, alignment on measuring success. I'll see you then.